All right, let's take a look at Nmap or Nmap. So we have an application here that's going to allow us to do some scanning on our network. And we'll see here it's called Nmap. It is the GUI version of the command line interface that is called Nmap, which stands for network map, right? So it is a way for us to explore a network, either external or internal, see what ports are open, what devices are out there. It lets us map our network. So if we're sitting down at an unfamiliar place and we're asked to diagnose an issue, one of the things we want to do is learn what's out there, what hosts are running, what hosts are active, what ports are open, what services they might be running. And we'll use Nmap or Nmap to do that. So let me just give you a quick tour of Nmap. So we have a couple important areas. The target area, right? That's basically we're going to refer to your IP address. Now, we might not know anything about our network. So one of the first things before Nmap we want to use, IP config. So we're going to do an IP config to find out things like what our default gateway is, what our subnet mask might be, so we know what network we're on. Easy way to figure it out, right? So at least we'll know what network the host I'm connected to is on. Next box is your profile box. This has some presets, right? So commands that might help you diagnose, map, identify hosts on your network. They're just preset options for Nmap. We don't have to stick with them. We can customize our own. We can use with these drop downs, but these drop downs make the job a little bit easier so we don't have to remember all the switches. The links on the assignment, you'll see a few of them. Two of them have some examples, and one has a series of commands or switches within the Nmap command that you can use. All right, so rather than remember all those all the time, and knowing that we're going to use some of them often, Nmap has equipped the software with some profiles. Right? Then we have the command line. So this is basically the addition of your target and your profile. If you don't choose a profile that's blank, you can come in here and type in whatever switches you want. You can even avoid the target area and just type the IP address directly. Right? So it depends on your approach, how good you are with it, how comfortable you are with it, and well, whether you're want to type it or not. Right? So those are the basic tool areas. Then of course we have the output area. Well, the output area is broken down into several tabs. Nmap output. So as you're running a particular command, and you can see, or as you're doing a scan, so you enter a target, you enter a profile, you hit the scan, the output's going to generate a step-by-step sort of command line. So this is the GUI equivalent of what you would see in your command line interface. Also in that output area, the tabs are ports and hosts, topology, host details, and then any scans you've done recently. So you notice I'm currently in the scans tab, and I have 2 scans that I've done to prep for this video. The tabs tell you different things depending on what scans you've done. Right? So I'm going to go through just a couple examples here, just quick, to see how I might use Nmap in a real situation. Right? So I did a scan first. Right? This is unsaved because I've just done it, and I wanted to clear out all the flotsam and jetsam. So I let this, Nmap, I didn't save anything, opened it up, boom, here's my, typed in these 2 scans, and now I'm making the video. Right? So notice first my notation. Sorry, let me make this a little finer here. Notice my notation. So in my target box, I typed 192.168.1.0/24. Nmap understands prefix notation. It understands the network address and the subnet mask combination. So basically I've told it, scan the entire subnet, right? Or in this case, the entire Class C address scheme that begins with 192.168.1. So it's going to scan all of that. But if I scanned in detail all of those potential hosts, because potentially there are 54 of them, right? Yeah, 255, yeah, okay. There are 254 hosts potentially. I'd be waiting for, quite a while to get that detailed scan. So when I first come onto an unfamiliar network, I'm going to IP config, see what network I'm a part of, and I'm going to say, okay, scan that network. But I just want to scan for something very specific. So what I scan for, I use the SN switch, right? So the SN option. So that's simply a simple ping scan for all the hosts that might exist on my 192 network, right? So if I see over here, when you open Nmap, you won't see this list because you haven't scanned anything yet. There's all the hosts that it has found. Right, so I ran that scan and I find all those hosts. So now I know those. Now those are the active hosts. Now notice there's quite a bit of gap here in the list. So I got 1.1 to 1.7. I got 116, 137. So it's not listing every IP address. It's only listing the hosts that it found. Right, now it found it fairly quickly. So let me open up that scan. So let me see. It started scanning at November 8th, 1902, which is 7 p.m. Yes, I work that late. And if you look, November 8th is a Sunday. Right? And down the list, it completed the scan in 6.27 seconds. Right? Cool. Right? So yay. So 6 seconds, and I learned every host that's on my network. Okay? Now, let me see here. In that list, you'll notice it gives me, if it can identify, the name of that particular device, or at least the manufacturer, right? How it identifies it. So Ubiquiti Networks, that's my router. Brother, well, you'd guessed it, brother. It's a printer, right? QNAP Systems, that's my network attached storage device. Lorex Technology, that's my security cameras, right? Yeah, I got a lot of stuff, right? Dell, someone in my house owns a Dell computer. Chamberlain Group, that's my garage door opener. Yes, it's networked. Right. And then you'll see a whole bunch of these guys, TP-Link, and Google, right? Well, there's my Chromecast, right? At least two of them. TP-Link, those are my, smart outlets and switches, right? So it's identifying all those devices. Now, in this case, I did this scan to make sure nothing weird is on my network. So far, it looks like everything's good. Let me scroll down here a bit. See me? And now we'll see, this is, concerning. I have unknown, right? Excuse me. So what are those devices? Well, if I'm not familiar with them, now I can check these out. So I'm not seeing anything odd in here. I see a cell phone. I see, yes, a vacuum cleaner. I see a whole bunch of stuff, but I got these unknowns. So I might pick one of those unknowns. Excuse me. Let me get my pen out of here. I might pick one of those and do a more detailed scan. So I picked the .214, right? So I want to see what that is. I'm not sure, what that device is. So I'm going to do a detailed scan of that. Let me open it up. And now it's going to give me, sorry, I didn't mean to highlight that. Now it's going to give me a list of everything it found. So it's looking at, excuse me. A little better there. So it's looking for everything it found. Any scripts that are running, any ports that might be open. Right, so now it's trying to do an OS detection to see what operating system's out there, and it tells me, notice that there's one port currently open. So even if this is a concerning device, there's only one port in there. So if somebody's getting into it from the outside, it's port 9999. So I know what port they're using. So I could block that in a firewall or an access control list. There's a whole bunch of options now that I know that thing's out there. Still doesn't tell me too much about what it is. So let me go into my host details. So I'm going to make sure that my 214 is selected in my list. Remember, I generated that list with the -SN option. And now that I did a deep scan of that, notice that there's no question mark on the icon. These little guys here are all question marks. So it's done a deep scan of that one, right? So I'm looking at that, and now it's giving me some more details. So it tells me the ports used, port 9999 is open, OS classes. It thinks it knows the operating system as OSRAM or OSRAM Lightify Zigbee Gateway. All right, so now I'm wondering, okay, a gateway, what is that? Well, the only place I can go to find out some of the information, I'd hop onto my router, or more specifically my DHCP device. In this case, for me, that's my router, and it would be for you at home too. Look at my DHCP leases, and I see if there's any device name associated with it. And sure enough, it is an HS200. And that HS200 is a TP-Link switch. So it's a smart switch. Now, why doesn't why doesn't Nmap find out or identify it as that? For whatever reason, these are the cheapy switches. They're not dimmable. They turn on and off, and they're in a network group. So it's not identifying that particular device, but I have ways to find out what it is. And you'll find a lot of these smart switch, smart light, smart outlet devices all have at least one open port. Some have more. Why? Because some have a port 80 or port 8080, both of which are HTTP web hosting ports, right? That they use to host a little internal website. So you can go onto your browser, type in their IP address, and do some configuring. So a lot of these smart devices have port 80 open. Printers do. Printers have port 80 or port 8080 used for their interface. So you'll see a lot of devices on this network with open ports. So you don't always go, oh my gosh, it's a web port. Why is it open? Because there's an interface running on it. Right? So just with those two little scans, I found out what's on my network and was able to identify a potential problem spot, an unknown device. So I know no one weird is out there. I could do a port scan or an intent scan for every device in that list all at one shot and see every open port that those are running. If I did let me see here. There it is, the only one that's DNS'd, right? Because I have a DNS entry here. If I did an intent scan of that one, so let me, boom, I think it's .12. Let me try that here. Yep. So let me do an intent scan of .12. All right, so I enter the target. I choose intents plus UDP. So I'm going to do not just TCP packets, or not just UDP, not just TCP ports, but UDP ports as well. And there's the command it generates. I hit scan, and now it's going to scan that particular device for all open ports. You notice already it found quite a few of them, right? So you'll notice now it's not done scanning. If you look over here, there's a little progress indicator. As long as that's scrolling, it's still conducting the scan, right? So now that I know that's in there, right, I know there are several open ports that were discovered. Well, that's not surprising. It's a network attached storage. It runs its own OS. It's a mini server. So there's going to be a whole bunch of ports. But none of them are all that concerning because I know what they do. Port 22 and 443, I know what those are. Port 80, I know what that is, right? 8081, none of these are too surprising. And I know that it's my network attached storage, so I'm not too concerned that those ports are open. But I can make sure that I don't have any forwarding rules or any access control rules that would allow somebody from the outside into my network attached storage device. And if I do, I want to make sure I know what those ports are being used for, and I'd want to make sure I have security set up on the device. Right? So I'm going to let that cook while I finish up here. So that in a nutshell is Nmap, right? Or Zenmap in this case, the graphical interface of it. It allows us to explore the network. Now your job is going to be to play around with it a little bit. There are tons of different profiles and options, right? Scan your network, see what hosts are out there, pick a host, identify it, do a deep scan of it. Also use it, I know this in our network at work, it's going to be tough. Also use it to scan something external. Scan a website, right? Scan the 172 default gateway. See what you see on those. Right? Get used to using some of the options in Nmap so you can familiarize yourself with a network. Right?